Following their two worst defensive performances, the Chargers made a big splash on Tuesday, trading for an edge rusher coming off of a double-digit sack season.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, and I've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons, but this is our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen, especially when Dan has to do a solo show because giant news drops. But to make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcasts from. And man, didn't think we were going to have a show today, but so glad that I'm able to be here to talk about the big news that the Chargers traded for Ravens edge rusher Odafe Oweh and traded away longtime safety Alohi Gilman. My first thoughts are, I love it, and they desperately needed it. But we'll talk about why exactly and what exactly Oweh is going to bring to the table, how the Chargers go about replacing Alohi Gilman and the depth that they have at safety, and also the job not being done yet, because there is still more to do on this roster if the Chargers want to salvage this season after their 3-0 start has been squandered over the last couple of weeks. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. One of the things that made me most excited about the Chargers getting general manager Joe Hortiz was that the Ravens historically, especially in recent history, have not been afraid to make splash trades, and more than that, not afraid to make splash trades in season. The Chargers went 13 years, basically, without having Tom Telesco make a trade in season or make it a big addition to this roster outside of Khalil Mack. And you're seeing already with Joe Hortiz last year, not only trading away Keenan Allen, but this year trading forward Odafe Oweh, that he is willing to make a move when he has to. So, not the move maybe most fans were expecting or hoped for as far as an offensive line pick, but edge rusher was way up there as far as what the Chargers needed defensively. And per Adam Schefter, the Ravens are receiving safety Alohi Gilman and a 2026 fifth-round pick. Kind of steep. Chargers receive edge rusher Odafe Oweh and the Rams' 7th-round pick in 2027. This is a very significant move for the Chargers, and it shows that Joe Hortiz's relationship with the Ravens is paying off in a big way, because they're getting Odafe Oweh coming off of a 10-sack season in 2024. It's not easy to trade for double-digit sack guys in the middle of the year, but that's exactly what the Chargers are doing here. And I think it's not just the sacks that make this a good move for the Chargers. I mean, you're talking about a guy who has 50 or more pressures in back-to-back seasons, according to Pro Football Focus. And more than that, I think stylistically brings something that the Chargers don't have. They don't have a super athletic, bendy edge rusher that has the length to affect passing windows and be able to get to the quarterback and make them uncomfortable on a consistent basis. And I think when you look at obviously what the Chargers need, you're missing Khalil Mack. He's on injured reserve. He cannot come back until week 7. So you needed it now. But I think the exciting thing is, even when he comes back, this is going to be a guy that I think will have a big role, because I think when you're looking at what he brings to the table athletically, much more athletic than what the Chargers have on the edge right now, much faster than the guys they have on the edge right now. And I think the other part of this is, you know how he's going to fit. This is a guy that has been with the Ravens, was drafted by the Ravens when Joe Hortiz was part of that organization, but also played on a defense under Mike McDonald and even Zach Orr that are a similar defense, probably a lot of similar verbiage to what Jesse Minter uses with the Chargers right now. So the learning curve as far as how quickly can you get this dude up to speed because you need him right now should be a little bit less than if you got someone that was playing in an entirely different scheme. That's not what you're getting in Odafe Oweh. And like I said, the Chargers desperately needed help on the edge, because since Khalil Mack went down, it's basically Tuli Tuipulotu and everybody else. I mean, Tuli has been good this year. He has 4 sacks, obviously all in one game, but more than that, 27 pressures and 18.6% pressure rate, which is pretty good. Without Khalil Mack, that means the next 2 guys on the field the most were Bud Dupree and Caleb Murphy. I was down on the Bud Dupree signing when they decided to extend him through 2026. I didn't really understand it. The metrics didn't love him as far as the pass rusher goes, but the story was that he's a physical edge setter that, can do enough in the pass rushing game, but does what Jesse Minter likes him to do on the edge. And there's no doubt in my mind that this is a move for Oweh that happens because Jesse Minter knows that they need it, right? But 160 pass rushing snaps for Tuli this year, 4 sacks, 27 pressures. Bud Dupree and Caleb Murphy combined so far this year, 185 pass rushing snaps, 1 sack between the two of them, and 12 total pressures. In 2025, Odafe Oweh has 12 pressures by himself, and although he doesn't have the sack number, doesn't have a sack so far this year, I think that is at least in part because the Ravens have been missing Justin Madubuike, which Nnamdi Madubuike, which I think obviously hurts when you don't have somebody pushing the pocket in that way. But also, they just have had a really, really terrible defense so far in 2025. And I think this move also happens, right? Because Kyle Kennard, your 4th round pick, has not panned out as an instant contributor yet. Like, he just hasn't. He's had 6 pass rushing snaps so far this year and has not registered a pressure yet. But Kyle Kennard was beat out in camp by a former undrafted free agent in Caleb Murphy, who was a practice squad guy for the Chargers last year. And this week, he was a healthy scratch in favor of practice squad edge rusher Cleveland Farrell. He's just not there yet. It feels much more like a Justin Aboigbe than it does, a Tuli as a rookie, or maybe some of these guys who have come in and had instant contributions. Justin Aboigbe only played 26 snaps or somewhere around that last season. He basically got redshirted as, a rookie in the NFL. And it's looking like that's going to be the case for Kyle Kennard. It's hard to imagine a big leap that he's going to make in season because the practices in season are so much more about game planning than they are about actual development, I would say. But when Tuli isn't on the field, the Chargers really have nobody right now, and that's basically what it comes down to. And I just think the next question is, as far as this trade and what the Chargers gave up, is this a rental? Because that's a steep price. A 5th round pick, I get it. A 5th round pick plus Alohi Gilman to get a 7th and Oweh back. You look at the Chargers' 5th round picks, and it's like, man, I really like when Joe Ortiz gets the draft in that round. Obviously, Cam Hart and Tarheeb Still is a bona fide starting level player, and I think he's very good. Cam Hart, we're still kind of trying to figure it out, but to get even contributions from Cam Hart as a 5th round pick, I think is a steal, obviously. This year, you get a Rondé Gadsden II, who obviously should be out there more and should be more of a focal point in this passing attack, and definitely should be out there on passing downs as opposed to Tyler Conklin, who had the bad moment last week. And you also have KLS, and I'm bullish on KLS in the long term. I do think he's going to be a viable receiving option, and I think just probably needs a little bit more time. But more than that, Joe Ortiz has already traded away a 2026 7th round pick, and now after moving this 5th round pick, you only have 5 picks in the 2026 draft. We know, especially on the offensive line, the Chargers are going to have to sink some serious resources into this roster coming up to fix some of the obvious flaws that we're seeing and some of the obvious depth that they're missing. I think the nice thing with Odafe Oweh is he's only 26 years old. This is his 5th year option year from the Ravens, who did pick it up. He is a free agent in 2026. But you have Khalil Mack basically mulling retirement every season at this point. I know his wife told him, hey, stop doing that. You're going to come back and play. And assuming Khalil Mack comes back and looks like the Khalil Mack that, he was before injury, he might be back in the fold in 2026 and maybe even beyond that. But he's an aging player. And what this is, I think, is a nice trial run to see if he's maybe the long-term running mate with Tuli Tuipulotu if Khalil Mack does retire in 2026. And I think it's nice for them to be able to have this, 11-game span, 12-game span here that they have to be able to see what he is, see how well he fits in this defense, and see maybe if they can unlock something. Obviously, he had 10 sacks last year. He doesn't have a sack this year, but I do think there's obvious athletic ability there. I do think there's obvious traits that they like and also fit well with what Jesse Minter wants to do. He's 26. He's been a very productive player in this league basically since he's gotten into the league. As a first-round pick, maybe the Ravens wanted more early on, but hard to argue with a 10-sack season. The Chargers only have one guy on their roster that's done that in recent memory, and it's Khalil Mack, and that was a few years ago. Bud Dupree has done it, but obviously he's not that same guy anymore. Either way, I like this trade for the Chargers. If it turns into something where they can get an extension done to where an edge rusher doesn't feel like a desperate need in 2026 in that draft class, it feels a lot better, because you know what else feels like a desperate need in the 2026 draft class? An offensive guard, interior offensive lineman, obviously, and some other positions as well. But what the Chargers are gaining Odafe Oweh, but they're also losing Alohi Gilman. And we're going to talk about what that means, how I feel about them losing Alohi Gilman, and why it leads to a potential exciting opportunity for rookie safety RJ Mickens, and why also the job is not done yet. So I'm going to get into all that and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've done parlays with the boys, obviously, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during game. I like live in-game betting where you can kind of get a feel for the game before you place your bet. Is something I like to do a lot. It makes watching football more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. So whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. And the Chargers have a huge game this week. Right now, the line is holding at 4.5 points is what they are favored this week in Miami. In a game that worries me a little bit. A great pass rush on the other side. The Chargers did not trade for an offensive lineman today. And also, you're having to travel to the East Coast in a stadium that can be hard to play at. And, that's basically set up for the opposing team to be cooked in the sun. So there are many great things that you can also bet on, like anytime touchdown scorers as well. But I'm very much looking forward to seeing if this line moves at all after this trade. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download FanDuel app today and get started. All right, guys. Well, we still have a lot more to get into, because it's not just the Chargers trading for Odafe Oweh, obviously, but it's also them trading away Alohi Gilman, who I know has been an up and down player for the Chargers and has been, had some really big moments, I think, for the Chargers this year, and had some down moments as well. But thank you guys, as always, for making us your first listen, and for putting up with me today having to go solo while David travels home from vacation. Not ideal timing for the Chargers to make one of their biggest in-season trades in recent memory. But I do want to talk about the Alohi Gilman of it all, because Alohi, first of all, let's start with this. I mean, best of luck to Alohi. He was a great 6th round pick, right? To get what Alohi Gilman has brought to this team for a 6th round pick will go down as one of the better kind of values that Tom Telesco ever had as the Chargers general manager. So I want to start there, because there were ups and downs this season, and there's a reason why the Chargers are trading him away. This year, obviously, I think the most notable mistake that he had was Courtland Sutton right before halftime when they played the Broncos and were trying to win that game. They give up on a fake toss, a 50-plus yard touchdown that was really awful to watch. But even when he did give up, bad plays like that, there was also some really good plays as well. And I would point out the play against the Giants, even in a loss, when the game was kind of getting away from the Chargers a little bit. The Giants were about to put the final nail in the coffin on a 4th and goal, and Alohi Gilman was there in the back of the end zone to break up the pass and keep the Chargers alive in that game. And I do think that, unfortunately, probably his best season with the Chargers was in 2023, which ended up being a season from hell. But I do think that he has really grown as a player, and I think the one thing to me that stood out to him the most is just a really instinctual player, a playmaking type of player that would come back to bite him in some instances, right? But at the same time, there are so many times you remember a stat that's really hard to find, which is stops on 4th down. And there was a few plays over the last couple of years when the Chargers had a 4th down play, including the game against the Giants on 4th down there, where he was the one that was able to come up and make a big time play in a big moment. But what I would say is also, the Chargers are doing this because of what they think of their safety depth. And I think with the play of Tony Jefferson, obviously a fan favorite, friend of the show, Tony Jefferson, you feel like you're still in a good spot there, because Alohi Gilman is best playing near the line of scrimmage. He's someone that wants to be around the ball, someone that can make plays on the football, but not necessarily a deep safety you want trying to make plays on the back end. You want him being able to be up closer to the line of scrimmage, and with Derwin James in the fold, there's just not really as much room for that. And when you also have Tony Jefferson, who probably also is better near the line of scrimmage, and Elijah Molden, who is better on the back end, I think that's what leads to a trade like this. But there is a kind of an exciting part of this, as much as, I liked Alohi as a player, even with the ups and downs. It opens up a potential role for rookie RJ Mickens. Alohi Gilman had played close to 300 snaps so far this year. Not all of those snaps are going to Tony Jefferson, right? They're just not. And with Derwin James playing a lot in the slot, it's going to, there is a role that's available now. And I think especially after we saw how exciting that, preseason was for RJ Mickens, where, he got, had a few drop interceptions, but at least he was getting his hands on the ball. But more than that, making several kind of open field tackles that save touchdowns, being a solid tackler. And I think even more than that, bringing some kind of youth, some athleticism, some speed to the defense, I think is also necessary. And this opens up that role. You don't need him to come in and start for you, but now you can start building him in on packages, because he was a healthy scratch last week. Because, you heard Jim Harbaugh the last time he talked about Tony Jefferson, because he came in, he said, I don't know, where the snaps come from, but I know I want Tony Jefferson on the field because the dude makes big plays, has one of 3 Chargers interceptions this year. But that's the other part of this too, is just the Chargers only have 3 interceptions this year. They've only gotten an interception in 1 of the 5 games. RJ Mickens at least gives you someone that has some ball skills and might be able to go make some plays here. This trade feels like a vote of confidence, not just in the safety depth they have with Tony Jefferson, but also in what they have in RJ Mickens. And like I said, they don't need him, which I think is a good place to be, because if he does kind of flail a little bit or does have some rookie moments, you're not totally relying on him to start week in and week out for you. But now you have a reason and an excuse to be able to get him on the field. And I think we know at this point that Derwin James is best when he's playing in the slot, and Jesse Minter wants to use him that way. So to have another guy with Elijah Molden on the back end that can give you some field coverage, that gives you some last line of defense tackling that RJ Mickens has already shown he can do a little bit, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what the 6th round rookie could do. 1 6th round rookie leaves in Alohi Gilman, and now another 6th round rookie has a chance to kind of make his claim, and shine a little bit. And on that, I think I'm excited to see, because it's some valuable experience for someone who really is kind of the only young player in that safety room right now that is kind of the future of the position for the Chargers. But my last thing on the trades is kind of this. I like the trade. Hopefully it's an extension that comes along with it, or that it can be kind of a longer term thing. But the Chargers haven't done enough. It can't stop here. And I think they're in a kind of a tricky spot, because unfortunately, a trade for an edge rusher doesn't fix the issues that you have on your offensive line. And we've spoken at length about how hard it is to try to find quality offensive linemen to begin with. And it's a plague out there. There's just not a lot of quality linemen already. And teams are very, very desperate to hold on to the ones that they do have, even the bad teams, because a lot of the bad teams have young quarterbacks they're not trying to see get run over. But what I would say is this. You have to still do something offensively, because even with getting better defensively with Oweh, because I do think it's a net gain as far as what you're losing in Alohi Gilman and what you're gaining in Oweh. Your offense ranks 25th in scoring offense, 25th in yards per game, or points per game. They rank last in second half points per game. They're just not good in the second half. They haven't been good overall as an offense, and we know the reasons why. But the Odafe Oweh trade doesn't do that. So if you're willing to kind of risk future draft capital to fix the defense this year, what are you going to do for the offense? Because the defense can be a little bit better, and you'll win some games that way. But we know this offense isn't where it needs to be. And of course, you still have reinforcements eventually coming back with Joe Alt and Omari on Hampton. Hopefully Joe Alt sooner rather than later. But then that kind of brings up the question, should they be sinking future assets in this roster that is already missing several key pieces, and you're 2 games away potentially from this being a sub 500 team? So do you want to spend picks when you only have 5 in 2026? You only have 6 in 2027 because they're not projected to get a compensatory pick next year. We'll see if they get compensatory picks in 2027. But is this them going all in? Is this the first of several moves? Or is this kind of the big move they are planning on making to try to improve this roster this year? Because I like the move, Does it move the needle as far as me saying, okay, now the Chargers are for sure going to make the playoffs if everything stands? No, I mean, it doesn't do that. And it'd probably take a pretty big move to plant my flag on that hill. But I'd say this, if the job's not done, they haven't been able to fix everything. And you do have some reinforcements coming. Are those reinforcements going to do enough for you to get to the level offensively that you need to get to make yourself a contender, to make yourself a playoff team that can hang with some of the good teams that you have coming up on your schedule? But the nice thing is the Chargers did add an edge rusher, and they also have some reinforcements on that side of the ball coming back with Denzel Perryman. And Jim Harbaugh said that the Chargers are opening up the 21-day window to activate Denzel Perryman off of injured reserve. It's always nice to hear guys coming back from injured reserve. But also, the Chargers are adding some practice squad players, a couple familiar names, and I think they actually could be really big moves because the Chargers need help on special teams, and both of these guys have shown they can do that. So we're going to get into all that and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
All right, guys, well, we still have more to get into today, and thank you, as always, for making us your first listen. Obviously, we're missing David Drogemeyer today, and I'm sure he'll give some thoughts on the crossover tomorrow on what he thinks about this trade. But always appreciate the everydayers. Always appreciate you guys making us your first listen, and you guys are the reason why I felt the need to do this solo show today, because it sucks when you have scheduling conflicts, but I just knew that we had to get something out for you guys today, because you know it is your team every day, and if you're not here every day, it doesn't count. So thank you, as always, for making us your first listen. If you need a second listen, make sure to check out the slate that they have on Locked On NFL, where they have 2 shows a day keeping you up with everything going on around the league. In the morning with Tyler the Madman Rowland, giving you a double shot of NFL espresso, or you can kick back later on with my guy Tony Wiggins in the barbershop on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast from. Chargers getting good news on the injury front. That is something we haven't got to say very much this season. The Chargers, according to Jim Harbaugh, are opening up this week the window on Denzel Perryman, their inside linebacker, which means they have 21 days to activate him before he would have to stay on injured reserve for the rest of the season. So we talked about with Deion Henley about this, just how much it sucked, because he knows what Denzel Perryman did in the offseason to get ready for this year, had won the starting job coming out of camp, and then immediately in the first game plays like 10 snaps and has to leave and is going to have to miss 4 games. So what I will say is this does not mean he's going to play for sure this Sunday against the Miami Dolphins, but I think it's a possibility because, we'll see what his practice designation is this week, how much he's able to go practice this week. But where they have really missed Denzel Perryman is just the physicality that he brings to the table. David talked about it earlier this week, how much they were missing that physicality. And I think especially coming off of a week where you kind of got embarrassed physically by the Commanders, this is a very welcome sign. And overall, I do think that Troy Dye has filled in nicely. And he had 3 tackles for loss in the last game. But there's also some moments where he was totally lost out there defensively. At least that's what it looked like when you're watching the tape. And I do think that one of those things that Denzel Perryman has always thrived at is being able to diagnose what's in front of him, be able to shoot the gap, and be able to make big plays in the running game. And I do also think it's worth bringing up that Deion Henley hasn't kind of been the same Deion Henley that we've been used to seeing. I mean, man, he looked really good early on in the season, and then he got sick, and it still doesn't feel like he's all the way back from that at this point. Was one of the 3 lowest graded defenders on the Chargers according to PFF in this last game. Obviously, take that with a grain of salt. But unfortunately, it kind of matches what I'm seeing, which is just Deion Henley, who can really be a factor at all three levels of the defense, not making those splash plays, not making plays in coverage. And with Troy Dye kind of already being a little bit limited in coverage, you really need Deion Henley to be one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL, which he has shown the ability to do. That has not been the case over the last 3 games. But the Chargers really needed help as far as at linebacker, especially with Junior Colson already on season-ending IR. No word yet on some other IR guys like Eric Rodgers, who had like one of the better preseason games I've ever seen from an undrafted free agent, or Dean Leonard, who would bring some special teams help on a coverage unit that hasn't been great over the last couple of games. But there were more reinforcements the Chargers signed, and it might seem like small deals, but I do think there are reasons to be excited about them. The Chargers did re-sign Nyheim Miller-Hines, who is not the answer to replacing Omarion Hampton. So let's get that part out of the way right off the bat. But I do think it brings to the table. He is on the practice squad, but I do think he could get elevated because, first of all, one of the things that Omarion Hampton has really done well is being able to catch the ball out of the backfield. Nyheim Miller-Hines is a pass-catching specialist, a third down running back, and also a running back that brings experienced pass protection, which is something that the Chargers need more of, not less than, right? This is the other flip side of it. Nyheim Miller-Hines is one of the best punt return men in NFL history, which I was kind of surprised to see when I was looking up the numbers. Has a career punt return average of 11.4, which actually ranks 16th best amongst eligible return men in NFL history. He's 8th amongst players since the year 2000. That means there haven't been 10 better players at returning punts since the year 2000 than Nyheim Miller-Hines. And that is a spot, obviously, Matt McConkey returned one back for a touchdown last week. I don't think they want him out there, right, consistently taking those hits. And I love Ladd as a punt returner. But in case this Darius Davis injury ends up being a couple more weeks, this is someone who's 0.1 yards behind Tyreek Hill in career punt return average and 0.3 yards behind Devin Hester, who's a Hall of Fame return man. This is the catch. We all remember why Nyheim Miller-Hines wasn't on the Chargers, or at least, didn't make the team, or wasn't able to stick on the practice squad for a long time. It's because he muffed 2 punts and also had a fumble carrying the football. When I saw Nyheim Miller-Hines, I thought, for a dude who's missed 2 seasons in the NFL due to, a crazy, freakish jet ski accident, that he wasn't actually the one driving the jet ski that, was the reason the accident happened. He still looked like he had some juice. It still looked like there was gas in the tank. So you're talking about a guy that, really good punt returner in his career and also has kick return experience. And the Chargers kickoff return unit just has been, let's just say, has left a lot to be desired in 2025. The Chargers ranked 25th in the NFL in average yards per kick return. They've had Hassan Haskins doing it, who I think is a bad choice for it. Keandre Lambert-Smith has gotten some returns the last couple of weeks. Hasn't really done much with it. This is a guy that in his last full season playing, and he was with the Bills in his last season in 2022 before missing 2 years, had 2 kickoff return touchdowns. This is a guy with 4 career return touchdowns, and in his most recent season returning, had 2 kick return touchdowns, which I think is easily the worst of the Chargers returning units right now. And they could actually use some juice there, get some better field position. And I think that is worth mentioning and is a reason that you could see him elevated from the practice squad. But I do think you have to see Kamani Vidal get signed to the active roster first, because you can only elevate 2 practice squad players a week. And right now, Kamani Vidal has been that guy. So I think he'll get signed with Omarion Hampton, the official move of him going to IR looming. But there was another practice squad move because the Chargers signed another familiar face in Jalen Reagor. And again, I don't think he's going to be a meaningful receiver. We know the coaching staff loves him. This is a dude who was a starter for a lot of training camp, especially before he got hurt, throughout the entire offseason, especially before he got hurt earlier in training camp. 7 catches for 100 yards last year, 14.3 average. Did have one of the best catches of the season. The sideline catch, I believe it was against the Saints, going up to get a whole shot from Justin Herbert in a cover 2 look, I thought was awesome. Hard to see him getting playing time because you already have 2 draft picks and Keandre Lambert-Smith and Trey Harris, who are struggling to find meaningful snaps so far. But again, has punt return, has punt returns in his history, 61 career punt returns, 1 career punt return touchdown, and also has a kick return touchdown in his career. So he has lacked as a wide receiver. He's been, a consummate professional and someone that this coaching staff liked to the point where we thought at one point this year he was going to be making the active roster coming out of camp. Don't expect much as, a receiver, but what I would say is, man, the way that this team has had offensive players specifically dropping like flies, find the depth now before you need it, because this is also a team that in the past had to have, Jason Moores and Michael Bandies and guys like that have to come up off the practice squad and actually play meaningful snaps for them. So as deep as the Chargers wide receiver room is, not bad to keep a guy who knows this offense very well after spending the entire season with them last year, and a guy you kind of know exactly what you're going to get from him as an outside X receiver if you need him to be that on the team now. Get him on the practice squad now, because you never know what's going to happen. And I do think it's a good move for this team, even if it's not something that moves the needle for most people. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. Thank you to everyone, first of all, for giving me the grace. I don't host solo very often, and there's a reason that David Drogemeyer is here with me every day, because he is awesome, and the chemistry that we have together is unmatched, I believe. But thank you anyways for checking today's show out, especially because of the big news that came out. To make sure that you never miss the show, and also don't miss tomorrow's crossover episode, make sure to go follow the show and follow for free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts from, as well as finding the show every day on our social media at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and also our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. We also will have a bold prediction show on Friday, segment at least, for the upcoming game against the Dolphins. You guys can hit up all of those places to get your bold predictions in, or you can call into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924 and leave us your 30-second bold prediction, buy or sell, or Chargers question. But hey, man, the Chargers have some life. The Chargers are making moves. We'll see if this is the only one, because the job is not done yet. But I think overall, you have to feel better about the Chargers today than you did yesterday. And after that 3-0 start and now losing back-to-back games, you needed it. But make sure you guys are back here tomorrow, because it is Crossover Thursday. Locked On Chargers joining up with Kyle Krabs, big-time name from Locked On Dolphins. I'm excited to watch it. David Drogemeyer will be back on the program tomorrow. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.